business is Pledge of Allegiance. Jennifer, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. As always, thank you for coming out tonight. It was a hot day, hot night. Appreciate it. And we'll move right along tonight. Public comments is the second agenda item. This public comment section relates to anything other than the public hearing. So if you're here for the public hearing, hold tight. But I don't see anyone else here from the public, so I'm going to go ahead and close that public comments. And go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the Planning Commission minutes for June 3rd. I trust everyone's read through. Any adjustments? No? Can I have a motion?
Make a motion.
I can second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Moving right along to item number 4. Item number 4 is a public hearing. There's A and B. A is rezoning request by JTCI Electric LLC property owner, and Joseph Iskander is the applicant to rezone the property on the west side of Depot Street Northwest, also adjacent to the south side of 401 Depot Street Northwest, identified as tax parcel 526-A-158, parcel ID 0700666, consisting of approximately 0.254 acres from two-family residential district, which is R2, to general business district B3. The property is designated as residential on the Christiansburg Comprehensive Plan. I'm going to go ahead and read through item number B as well, since the two are very much related. B is for a conditional use permit request from the same owner and same applicant at the same address as so noted. And the CUP would allow one residential dwelling unit apartment on the second floor of the proposed general office in the general business district B3, located at the property as designated. Property, as I noted, is residential under future use map for the comprehensive plan. So, staff, you want to give us just a quick overview of both of these together?
Before you do that, can I?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23112, Section B1, and 2.23115, Section H, I am declaring that I am a member of one of 3 or more businesses that may be affected by the agenda items 4A and 4B as an owner of Hometown Security, an electrical and electronic security contractor. I am able to participate in the discussion and voting on this matter fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, staff.
Yeah, of course. Good evening, commissioners. The applicant is requesting to rezone their property located to the south of 401 Depot Street from R2 to B3, General Business District. And the applicant currently operates a medical office that provides therapeutic and psychiatric services on the adjacent property, so 401 Depot Street, and they wish to expand their current practice. And this rezoning will allow them to do so by constructing a new building that can house additional offices for therapists or other services that they may provide. In addition to that, they do propose a 7 parking space parking lot. However, there is a main concern among staff about possibly the lack of parking due to the parking requirement for medical office being 1 parking space per 200 square feet of floor area. And additionally, there is an associated CUP request with this. If it is approved, the applicant wishes to put in an apartment unit on the second floor of the medical office building. And this would require an additional 2 parking spaces that would have to be met independently from the medical office building parking requirement.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Are the spaces included in the map there, the 2 additional spaces?
They do show some spaces, but it doesn't match the requirement.
Okay, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to the public hearing, and anyone wishing to speak on either A or B, please approach the podium, state your name and your address.
My name is Brad Taylor. My address is 240 Airport Road in Reiner, Virginia. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Iskandar. He was unable to be here. He's a friend of mine. I'm also his real estate agent when he purchased the property, the old Bright Services building, and turned it into a medical facility. As a part of that purchase, he was able to purchase the property behind it. And yeah, he's been a physician in the area for a while. He was located out on Arbor Drive and kind of outgrew that and wanted to move to this area. And I noticed they made comments about the lack of parking, which he's met the requirement on the property up front, but at no time are any of the spots completely full. I don't know if that helps the situation. What he needs is more therapists, because as patients rotate through, I mean, it's not like it's a full parking lot. So, and the additional space above is for, because he's got a location in Roanoke, Lynchburg, and Christiansburg. So it could be for him, it could be for perhaps a physician coming in, staying, just having a place to dwell if need be, whether it be overnight or someone's here for short-term, long-term, as they're training or doing whatever it is they're doing. It's beneficial for him to have that there as well. I don't know that the space, the lot would allow us to make any more changes to the parking, but we're certainly open to that. But there's at least 13 parking spots on the front property, and of course these two properties join each other, and that's kind of the thought process, is just to have additional offices for his physicians, and he's a psychiatrist. It's for mental health, and he treats people from 6 years old up to 90 years old. And apparently does very well at it. Okay.
Very good. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing for both item A and B. And what we do now is we go into discussion among the commissioners, and we'll discuss both A and B somewhat together. And stick around, because I know we have questions.
Sure.
Okay? And hopefully you can answer them for the applicant, and if not, we'll just push it back and wait till he's available again. Okay, so, commissioners, have at it.
I have a question.
Yeah, Tom.
How many spots is he lacking?
One, plus the apartment, so 3 total?
It would be 3, yeah. It wouldn't it?
There's 7 right now, correct? They would need 11.
So we said 13.
So, did I not do my math right? So,
And then
how
2
big
for
is the
the-
building, 1,700 square feet?
2 for the
Am I not-
apartment, and
That
then one
sounds-
additional one for the business.
That sounds correct. I wish I could read that, Jennifer.
Yeah, me too. So it's 45 by 38,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's one space for every 200 square feet.
Mhm.
So that's 8.5 spaces.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. Plus
So it
2
would
more
be-
for rental.
Yeah.
So 10
That's
and a half
right.
spaces, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
So he'd need a total of 10.5 spots, parking spots?
And where are
And there's 7 right now.
the 13 spots you were talking about?
The building in front of it, the one-story frame that sits in front of it, is the old Bright Services building
Okay.
that he currently has, and there's 13 parking spaces at that property.
Okay. And that's required, all 13 are required for that medical facility.
When he initially made this purchase and we came to the town, it actually had, I think it had 12, but they were on 10-foot centers. And so because of the distance, they were able to meet the 13, which was the basic requirement from that particular
Right,
building.
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
So staff, it would be, based on the square footage of that building, he would still need 13 spots for that building.
Plus the new.
And then for the new building, he would need, what did we say, 8,
8.5.
8.5, and then if we put residential in there, it'd be 2 more. So it looks like we're short, because you said that.
So you're saying you need 13 for the new building as well?
8.5.
8.5. So we have 13 at the old building, so we need 8.5 at the new building.
But the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, the 13 is tied to the old building.
Yeah, so, well, there's 14 actually, I think, at the,
13, one,
yeah, mhm.
So that would be the requirement of the old building.
And the
then
square
we have
footage,
an
yeah.
additional requirement of the new building.
The square footage meets the 14. Because we did try to make that work where it could be shared. But the square footage of the building, it requires 14.
It requires 14 more.
It requires the 14, the square footage of the building.
Of the
The
current
existing
building
building.
requires the 14,
Yes.
and then the new building requires the 8.5, and then the apartment requires 2. So it's short 10.5 spaces total.
What we have there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we would need to come up with 4.5 more parking spaces.
Got it. That's, just so we're all on the same page.
And there's never concession given to, I mean, if it's a shared building, I mean, if they share the parking and he's got 3 staff and 3 clients, and he's got 8 empty parking spaces, is there ever any consideration the fact that it's never full capacity as far as traffic is concerned?
So,
Caroline, I think you answered that earlier. It would have to go to, what committee?
The only committee that could, decide on that would be the BZA, due to it being a code regulation.
What's it called?
The Board of Zoning Appeals, but that's only granted in a hardship.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, I don't wanna say a couple because I don't remember, right? When we were looking at the parking study downtown, and Matt Hicks had his building with apartments, Mr. Poff had his building and trying to put apartments in Mr. Poff's, and there was a conversation, none of these guys didn't have parking, but if they had parking within so many feet, they could count that towards their unit. And I know that you girls weren't here, but I don't know the right steps to bring that information up, and nobody else was here at that time either.
Well, the problem I have with it, if they don't meet the parking now, it may suit the business that's there now, but let's say in a year or two he decides to sell it, and it might not meet new medical facility. So once we approve it, we approve it.
well, I think with that, I have concerns about a B3 going in there right next to residential, not knowing what could be future
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
So regardless of the parking, I think I have general concerns about changing the zoning.
So the way I would put it, back to the applicant, a few of us are concerned about making it a B3 and not feeling comfortable knowing that it will always be a medical facility there.
May I ask a question? Is the 13, well, the parking requirement, is that just for medical, or is that a something for all business? In other words,
All businesses have some form
and is it
of
based
parking
on-
requirements.
And it's based on the square footage of the building.
My understanding is medical has its own requirements for parking.
But all businesses have some form of requirement. It just might vary based on what the business
So-
is.
Okay,
Is that-
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. For some reason, because I thought that medical did have its own.
It does, as far as I know. The staff has confirmed that for me.
And so if this were just a business, would the same 10.5 parking spaces apply if it weren't necessarily medical? I mean, that's his intent, but I'm asking because of the question that he said, what happens if it's not medical? Would it meet the requirement? So if this were just an office building per se, based on the square footage, is that square footage based on that building square footage, or is that based on medical building square footage?
That would be medical, so he wouldn't be able to meet, because it would be 1 per 400 square foot floor area if it was just office building. for
If it was
B3.
just office building,
So it'd be different.
for clarity.
It would be different.
So it
But
can,
what I actually said was if it's sold to another medical business, another type of medical business, then it would still have the same requirement for parking. They may have more clients than the present one does, but you people have a different issue besides the parking, so.
Oh, I
think that
apologize.
has to be talked about before we go into the parking.
I thought he said that if it were no longer used as a medical facility, we would be worried about the parking. But if the zoning wasn't in question, then if this were just a business, then the way it's drawn is already, the parking is met. Am I understanding? I just want to, I'm not
Yeah.
being defiant, I'm just asking
Yeah,
questions.
you're right.
So,
Right.
because he said, what if
If it
it's
was
no longer
general
medical
business,
and another business came in there? And if it were another business, then the requirement should already be met.
It's general business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, with clerical, or is that a totally different thing? Clerical from his, like if he moves some of his clerical people from that building to open up offices into the other building as clerical, would that still be considered medical if no medical practicing was actually happening in that
If
building?
they work for the medical.
They were, okay, so it still
then I would
applies,
say
okay.
it's still medical.
Again, I'm trying to get all the questions answered.
No, I think those are good questions. I mean, I think that there are ways that you know, I think you know the business and your friend's business, and if there are ways that it works with ordinance, but I don't know that all of them could be answered tonight. Some of that might even be conversations with staff separately just to be clear on the purpose, what does fit, what doesn't fit, where it, you know, could align. But I think those are good ways to think about it, to
Sure.
see what works within the ordinances.
Well, because, can I just stand back up?
Yeah, sure.
I feel weird sitting down. And I think, was it you that said you had some concerns with it being right next to residential?
I do. So I don't have concerns with what sounds like a mental health facility that doesn't have that much business. It doesn't seem to really impact the neighbors. But the reality is when we turn it to general business B3 and he sells the property or someone else comes in, they can do whatever they want within the guidelines
Of
of
B3.
B3 that could be really intrusive
24-hour gas station.
to the restaurant, to the residents that live right next to that. So that's my concern. It's not the property and what it's being used for now, it's what happens when we completely turn it into that
Right.
for future land use.
Well, and I know, obviously, this is residential. The property as it stands right now is currently R2. R2 would have given him an opportunity to possibly put some townhouses on it. That's not what he wanted, but he explored that to see what he could, but it doesn't meet the setback requirements to do so. So now, we've basically, we've got a property that the best you can do based on that is just throw a house there. And I'm a real estate agent, and that, I know the future plan is for that to all be residential, but you look across the street, you've got the mulch place, you've got the county, you've got Sunoco, you've got the other buildings, you've got the orthodontist who has a similar setup, who's redoing right now and having a residential up top there as well. That's a very busy intersection, and to throw a little house up there doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's worth more than just parking. So we're trying to figure out the best thing to do with it where everybody can benefit, whether it be him having more space, him having a place to stay. And I'm sure just buildings and values and stuff generate more income for the town in some sense. So would like to really reconsider to figure out a way to make this happen, whether it be and I need to go back to him because I know his plan is to use it as a medical facility. And Jennifer, you're probably right. Even if he puts his staff over there pushing papers, that's still probably medical, right? I would think so. I don't know.
My guess.
That'd be my guess. It'd be my guess. So, okay. So,
There's another thing that, and you guys probably remember this, downtown, there is a candle shop there. And she had an apartment upstairs. And I think what the town basically tied it to is she can use that as an apartment for an employee that worked at the candle shop. But it couldn't be rented out to,
It could have a lease, it could not have a lease on it, like
yeah,
a 12-month lease.
right. So I'm looking at this situation saying, okay, if it's one of the, say, people that work at the clinic, or the medical facility living there, I think it flies. I think it works. But if it's nobody associated with the medical business there, then it might fall under the same problem that we had with the candle shop.
and it's my understanding that's the
Okay.
intent. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the intent. And it would be almost like missionaries coming into a church, and the church have a place. So you've got a doctor coming in that's going to be their training staff doing whatever procedure.
Got
If they're from Colorado, they don't have to go stay at the Motel 6, they can stay there.
Got it. Yeah, I think we're just trying to get a comfort feeling too for the B three,
Okay.
to say that the applicant is basically saying, no, this is just medical facility, and I do not have any plans to sell it and put in a Denny's or, you know, because we're just trying to be very careful when we switch to a B three, that's wide open.
Yeah, some of the B three uses I noted by right would be hotels, hospitals, service stations, as you mentioned, so that's something I thought about too. And I'm honestly torn on this one because we got B three right next door already.
Yep,
But this is also residential on the future land use map also, so. But I went by and looked at the lot, and there's not a whole lot you can do with that lot.
There's not.
It's a tiny lot.
There's
So, so I'd like to see it be something, you know, so.
Is the plan to connect the two parking lots, like drive-through, or more
Either,
part of the
I don't
other?
think, because it's on the hill,
Yeah.
Mark, if you look at,
Pretty steep
there's a hill, I think the intent would to be build stairs, so you could park and come
But
down.
not drive
or park and go up.
pulled into
If
the
you go
old
around
right,
the
you
backside,
wouldn't be able to drive out of the other driveway.
that's correct, that's correct.
There's
I mean,
also,
that could possibly be accomplished if that's something, you know.
there's also a patio or something in the back there
Yes, sir.
too,
Yes,
between
sir.
the two lots. So I guess if that wasn't there, you could probably make a drive-through.
I'm sorry. Are you recording me? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, for the minute.
I understand, because I know I'm loud enough for y'all to hear me.
It's not normal to have a microphone in your hand all the time.
No, it's
I
not.
know.
Well, the other question I had is, you have the existing facility, and this is just an extension or another building to house more, medical work. Was it considered to just expand onto that building?
Probably,
Yeah.
To just vacate that one.
Add a story.
you, the building itself, I mean, it's a block building, it's already, it's broken up pretty good. I know they've done some renovating inside to make the space, work for them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if you came out on either side, then we would be intruding on the parking of the original building. And then going up, I guess, would be a possibility, but at that point, you still have a lot sitting behind it that
No, I
at this.
guess that's why I was looking at the existing building, extending it into the lot.
Into the hill, I mean, I guess that's conceivable.
And I didn't look that close at the property, if it's,
It's, if you go to the back of the property, I mean, it just kind of goes up like that. If I'm standing at the back wall, I'm looking, I'm not quite, but that back lot is like that. So there's, yeah,
Okay.
it's a pretty good drop. There'd be a lot of digging of that road or that lot.
Which in your packet there was a letter or statement from Dr. Iskander, speaking about the parking as well, and with an explanation about his services and
Right.
the consistency of parking. And also, just wanted to clarify, I'm not the zoning administrator, so I can't positively give you an answer, but when you're not generating traffic for medical office use or any kind of clinic, so if it was paper pushing or anything like that, it would maybe be considered
like an office.
an office, yeah. So, because it doesn't generate the traffic like a medical office would be considered.
So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of.
Possibility.
A lot of open questions to confirm, and my opinion is, I'm not ready to make a move tonight. I think that's a good question, that's a great question for the applicant to say if it's clerical staff, is that just a regular office building then? And then does that satisfy the parking? And to the extent that it's a B3, we change it to a B3, can it be tied with the applicant's approval to specifically, no, my intent is not to sell it, my intent is to expand my business, and I'm not putting a gas station back there.
I guess my question is, where do folks fall first on even changing it? Because if folks are on board with considering a change to B3, then I think it's worth not making a decision tonight and giving time for the applicant and staff to kind of work through some details, see what makes sense, with zoning. But if planning commission is gonna say, is leaning towards not even approving a B3 change, and that seems like a lot of work for not a recommendation that we're gonna make. Now, that's not to say, like, planning commission might recommend that it not change to B3. Now, that's a recommendation, town council has their own choice, so the applicant could always go before town council and say, here's some, information, things I would do differently to try and meet the parking, but it would still stand that planning commission doesn't recommend, but that would give more time for the applicant than trying to squeeze in before our next meeting. So I guess where are folks, even on changing?
Well, let me piggyback on
Yeah.
that just a little bit. We have one resident that wrote us a note saying that they don't think this is a good idea putting a business there. If I look around that lot, there's a lot of residential, but yet we've only received
Yeah.
one letter
Yeah.
from anybody. So,
Not only that, the traffic is gonna pull out on the Depot Street, which is a busy
Correct.
road anyhow, so
so that's,
it's not gonna change a whole lot.
so that's where I was leaning,
Yeah.
piggybacking on it to the extent that, well, if the residents don't have a real issue with it, it's not a traffic issue.
Yeah, I don't see it as being one.
If we get comfort feeling from the applicant that it's gonna be an office type building, which then satisfies the parking, no, I'm not against a B3.
I'd like to, do you know the length of stay that these tenants are gonna be in there?
I don't, but I can
I'd
ask.
like to know that,
And
because
it-
that's a big difference between transient
Yep.
and some longer term rentals, so.
Well, and Mike, it could be over a weekend, it could be over a month, it could be just overnight. It could be, he lives in Roanoke, it could be he's down here till 9 o'clock and says, you know what, I gotta be back here tomorrow morning at 7. There's no reason for me to go home. It could be something like that.
And then I would push the staff to give us some guidance on that too. Does that fall under the town's guidelines that we can do that? And because we don't wanna, you go to the trouble of building a nice apartment up top and then we come back and say, no, it can't just be
Right.
overnight.
Or
It's-
let me know what the circumstances are, because it's my understanding that the orthodontist is doing that very thing right now. He's got an office downstairs and a living space upstairs, so. Not saying he did it, why can't we? But I'm saying
Yeah.
he did it, why can't we, so.
And I guess my point is if someone that works there is living there full-time,
Right,
then
Yeah.
it's not an issue.
right. He just happens to have 3 locations here, Roanoke and Lynchburg, so.
So, commissioners,
I'm not against the B3.
we're against the B3, okay. I would feel more comfortable hearing back from the applicant before I make a vote.
My concern is still the parking, and
Parking.
if the parking isn't met now, and like I said earlier, if the business is sold, he may say, I'm not gonna sell, but change his mind later down the road. If it is sold to another medical facility that has more patients, then
Right.
there is a real problem with parking.
I mean, I
So
think.
would rather
yeah.
see the parking met now,
Yeah.
or at least closer to it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the engineer can't draw something different for you.
Sure.
I'll give him that as an option.
Yeah, he's drawn this as a general business, so, general office. And that's why he says over here on this concept plan, 400 square feet per parking space.
Gotcha.
Or vice versa.
Good point, Mike. Mark, comments?
I support a B3 change.
But I think we still have some open questions before we take a vote, if everyone agrees to that. So I think at this point in time, I'm gonna push to staff to work with the applicant, and, let's get some of these answers, or questions answered. And so, for you to take back to the applicant, it's not a no, it's not a yes, it's a
Tell me what you're
fact-finding,
doing.
Digging a little bit deeper. You can take back the fact that, we're not against a B3 as long as it's a, basically a medical office type building. We'll work with the parking, to the extent if we can make it just an office, the requirements are less. And then from here, we'll go back to our next meeting, we'll have another discussion, and I'm sure you'll be made aware of that. And then the next move is there'll be a public hearing with town council. So you'll have your chance, and the applicant will have a chance to talk to town council, and we know that date,
The public hearing for town council will be August 13th.
so August 13th. So it's important that you guys show up there. And then then we would meet after that.
No, you
We
would
meet
meet
July
for
29th.
action July 29th.
Okay, so we would meet before
Yep.
council meets again. Okay, and that'll be good, because, just to explain a little bit further to you, our job is to recommend to town council based on all the facts that we've collected. It sounds like tonight, there's a lot of little unanswered questions, so this will be a good fact-finding time for us to do this, re-meet, and then, basically give town council our recommendation.
And just specifically, so I can recap, your concerns are with the parking. Mostly.
Parking and the fact that turning it into a B3 could be all types of things going in there. So I know it's not his plan to do
No,
that, but.
and I agree, but like I know you guys have used, gas stations and things like that. A gas station would never fit there anyway.
Yeah,
And if something happened that building did eventually get sold, whatever business went in there, it would be limited to the amount of space. So if I was the kind of guy that said, hey, I need 30 parking spots, I wouldn't buy the building.
yeah, right.
So it's gonna be, I think
That'll be
it's
tied
gonna
to-
hold itself to whatever it's gonna be at that point.
And I don't worry about, one thing we talked about with the parking ordinance change that we made for banks and retail a few weeks ago was that we were worried about parking spilling over into residential and public rights of way. That's not gonna happen here. So-
No.
Yeah, if somebody
Nobody's
parks
parking
on
on
the sidewalk, they're getting arrested, so.
So
Okay.
I think that's where we stand tonight, so,
So I should advise, Dr. Joe to get back in touch with the staff
yes,
and get these questions answered. And then you guys will meet on, you said on the 27th, that.
29th.
29th? Is that here? Is that
Monday, yep.
privately? Okay. So do we need to be back for that?
it'd be good,
Okay. And then it'll go before town council on the 13th.
yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Clear?
Clear as
All right.
mud.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
And about the occupancy too, is it gonna be more long-term or transient?
Yeah, good point, thanks.
For the residential space.
Got you.
Okay,
Well, thank you, folks.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 5, other business. Staff, do you have anything for us tonight?
Y'all met here just for us?
Yep,
That's all.
That's it. You're welcome.
We appreciate your time.
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing?
Nothing from us.
Commissioners?
I have, go ahead.
Go ahead, no.
I have a random one. Is
Okay.
it possible on the agenda, you know how it says planning commission's next meeting? Can we have a spot right under that that says town council public hearing date? So that way, so y'all are super helpful, cause we're always like, town council will meet on, and you're like really on it. But it might just be helpful, just so we always know.
Let's save me asking the question.
Yeah, it would. And then on the agenda, folks will have that when they leave. Is there other things on the agenda next time besides this, I guess? Okay.
No, do you want the action date for town council too?
I think that would be nice.
That'd be nice. Yeah, thank you so much.
Tom?
The concern I have, we talked a little bit earlier about it, is, I don't know if staff has contact with VDOT or not, but on the exit, it's 18C exit off of 81, and you come off of there onto Roanoke Street, and that's right by where the Cracker Barrel is, and nice new traffic light there. I'm very happy for it, since I live on Tower Road. And the concern I have is VDOT had talked about wanting to take that stop coming off of there so that they didn't have to stop, they could just drive right on their own. That would be a disaster. And there's an easy, simple way to resolve the problem, and I can't get through to anybody at VDOT. And there's two mounds, two dirt hills actually, that are right at that exit. And when you drive, you get in between those hills, you can see partially down Roanoke. So if they took one or both of those hills away, it'd solve the problem. You'd have people exiting, especially when there's a backup on 81. They always run them through there. And it would go a whole lot faster because of the traffic light and them exiting off if they could see down Roanoke. That's basically the problem. And I would like to get that message across to them. And I'd be happy to walk out there and show them what I'm talking about.
So who we pass that on to?
Well, I'll find somebody.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good, thank you. Let's see, I have a couple things. I don't think it's unknown to anyone about the regional commission. They're looking at the bank building over next to, car wash on North Franklin Street. And,
Make sure you specify which car wash.
yes. Okay.
It's the American, the
There's
old
a lot.
American
Next
building.
to the, yes, next to the Enterprise.
Okay, gotcha.
So, they're looking to purchase that building and, move the regional commission. So, that's, right now in heavy discussions. So, that would be very nice, and, because right now it's located over in, Pulaski, and, it'd be more centralized for a lot of the, regional commissioners. So that's exciting news. The other thing, I'll just throw out there, you guys can throw rocks at me and say, are you just so selfish? We always bring up sometimes, having the meeting earlier. Right now it's at 7:00. The regional commission meets at 6:00. And, I'll just throw it out there. I'm retired. Tom, you're retired.
Supposedly.
And Ann, you're a working mother at home. And so, but the rest of you guys aren't. So, I'm not sure if you guys can even make it here, and I'll open it up to you staff to say, you know, if you get off at 5, would it be good to have it at 6? Instead of 5, go home? I don't, but you three are the ones that I really need to hear from.
We also have the subcommittee meetings.
Right, which is an hour before, right?
An hour before, so you have to keep that in mind. I'm not opposing to changing it if people
Yeah.
want to, but
I can't
Can't
get
do
here
it.
an hour earlier.
Okay.
I'm lucky to get here at 7.
Okay. Well, that makes it easy.
I can meet either 6 or 7.
Okay. Mike?
I'm fine with either.
Okay. So,
I imagine when Felix has a good 45 minutes to hour commute, and so I think
Felix was the one I was worried about.
I think 6 would probably, I don't want to speak for Felix, but I do know he has a commute from Botetourt, so.
It's not a big issue for me. I just thought it seems like every 5 years we throw it out. I don't think I had anything else. I'm good. Anybody else?
Good.
Well, at that, I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.